So delegates, we are moving into the last hour of the conference. We have managed our time well, so please bear with us. We have 2 more sessions. I want to call upon James to do a nice summary of the day's proceedings. He'll be joined by a small team, and then we will hand over to Sibelelo to close. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Roxana. What happened to Dr. Keevy, by the way? So colleagues, thank you so much.
We've moved from Dr. Keevy yesterday to friends today.
Okay, no, that's fine. So colleagues, we're really in the final lap of our conference. Thank you so much for being part of this over the last 2 days. Today's been very consistent in attendance. So I'm really confident as I look at what we spoke about today that we're going in the right direction, and it's not easy. Jeremy and Sandiso and Yamkelwa, who are joining me on this panel, are going to talk a little bit to the journey we've had over the last 4 years. We've had a couple of partners. Rios, Andrew, who was in the previous session, was one of our key partners, and others. But we thought about inviting 3 of the, let's call it the earlier partners, just as we close out the day. So I've got the 3 people with me. I'll quickly introduce them. And just Jeremy, thanks for joining us, from the CSIR, Chief Researcher, also adjunct professor at NMMU, and really involved in a broad kind of space in terms of the work that we've been doing in a very interdisciplinary way. A lot of work in the built environment and other places. Sandiso, I always wonder, like, how do you kind of get through the day? It looks like you're so busy, so many things happening. So Sandiso heads up Koi Studios, which is a company that really helped us with the business plan. The kind of developments that we're talking about here today need to be carefully thought through in terms of their financial sustainability. And Sandiso comes with good credentials, previously working at Accenture and doing many other things, but really an inspiring young lady. Can I say young, Sandiso? Inspiring young lady that is setting an example for so many of our people in our country. The last panel member is Yamkelwa. Yamkelwa, in your role at Kaitoma Creatives, worked with us, Yamkelwa. But I also see you do a couple of other odds and ends, Yamkelwa, like automotive. And I'm like, really? Like, this is quite interdisciplinary, just to kind of emphasize that. Yamkelwa describes himself as an African Renaissance man and a serial entrepreneur and activist. Nice panel, guys. We've got 15 minutes, so it's going to be really tight. So Jeremy, first over to you. What was your role in the early days of the PC Cloud, and just your takeaways from what you got from the conference? Thanks, Jeremy. Over to you.
Thanks, James. And it's very nice to be here and see how the project is developed over time. So a small team from CSR worked with Jet very early on, and Mercita very early on in the project. And we really focused on 3 things. First of all was doing a situational analysis of the area. The second was mapping systems and stakeholders. And then the third part was kind of really looking at a feasibility. And what that boiled down to was really understanding what this thing was. I think all of us at the beginning needed to kind of understand what this was and how it applied locally, because you know, there are many fantastic international examples, but what does that mean locally? So I think that was our role, and just in terms of picking up in the kind of last couple of hours in terms of some of the sessions, what strikes me is that we've got fantastic, James mentioned, you know, I work with buildings. We've got fantastic plumbing, you know, this huge potential. But what we really need now is the opportunities and water to flow through. And I think that's one of the things I've picked up really on all the presentations, is that we're now at the stage where we've got the technology, it's workable, but we want those opportunities to draw people in, give them opportunities for training, for work, and get them going with life. So that's my quick take. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeremy. And kudos to you and your team. You know, you joined us with Jet and Mercy at a very early stage. It was difficult. I think you and your team felt it, and we felt it, and we've come a long way. And thanks, you gave us a firm foundation while it was not easy. And I think you also need to kind of convey that to the rest of your team. Thank you for that. Okay, Sandiso, what were you guys doing?
I guess it's a Jet and Mercy thing to give very broad briefs that are sometimes as ambiguous, and then it's like, figure it out, guys. We had a similar challenge, but I think the work done by Mercita helped us start off at some point. I think what we are trying to do is really make this PSA Cloud a commercial entity, or give it like an entity of a sort. So what are we going to call this thing, and how are we going to make it operate, within a very challenging environment, government, private sector. It's trying to make these two conflicting, very different entities or organizations, the setups actually work. So we try to understand the different opportunities that we could explore in government, the ones in private sector, the pros and cons, and then bring it to life in some sort of a prototype and understand, what this thing could actually look like. I think what we did help them achieve was just like, how are we going to set up the structure? How are we going to make it into a viable organization? Because I think when we got there, it was just a nice idea. And it's like, then we had to like have these challenges about, no, we can't do that. It's not according to the public sector and all of those things. So we also learned as well. And it was actually like one of our first big projects as Keevy Studios, because we were actually 1 year in. And I thank you for the patience of Jet and Mercita. I think they were also coaching us along the way, being young people, but they gave us a fair chance and they believed in us. And we thank you so much for your support. So thank you.
Thanks, Sandiso, and thanks for the pushback on the clarity of the work, by the way. But I think with Jeremy, with your team, Sandiso, with your team, even us as a project team, we've formed each other through this process, and it helped us to get to where we are today. So, and we still got a long way to go. That's very clear from what we got today. Okay, Kelwa, you guys work in the marketing space. So what was your role in your contribution?
Good afternoon. Our role was basically to take over from the work that had been done by the likes of Keevy Studios and Rios, and create branding around the PSA Cloud and how the PSA Cloud would communicate its brand to the broader market that it is going into. So a part of our responsibilities were like developing the logo that is now being used by the PSA Cloud, developing the website that serves as the area of communication and being able to have web presence for the PSA Cloud, and also starting the social media pages that will be points of engagement to the PSA Cloud. So it was all about how the PSA Cloud brand is created and how it communicates itself to the people that it wants to engage, be it stakeholders, be it the end users that are going to be the beneficiaries of the MVP in the terms of the learners and the employees, and actually have clear messaging that goes out to each and every one of those stakeholders that are going to be part of the PSA Cloud. That was, in a nutshell, what we were tasked to do, and hopefully we've executed the job according to brief.
At least your brief was clear, Kelwa, compared to the others. Can I just quickly put you on the spot, Kelwa, the design? What does the logo symbolize? Can you give me a little bit of a sense?
So when we got the initial brief of what the PSA Cloud was about, we saw the PSA Cloud as a balancing force, as a balancing mechanism with a lot of inputs that were coming in from all sorts of different sectors, and having to then find the perfect balance so that the usability and the interoperability make sense for each and every stakeholder at the different levels that they were coming in from. And so the tool that we envisaged being a balancing tool was a gyroscope. So the PSA Cloud logo is actually an emulation of a gyroscope that sort of balances all these inputs and outputs and then make sure that everyone gets what they need out of it.
Perfect. Perfect. Thanks. And sorry for putting you on the spot. Sandiso, no any advice for the team going forward in terms of what you're seeing from where your other work perhaps is at the moment, and where you see PSA Cloud going?
I think we need to be responsive to the rapidly changing environment that people operate in. If you think about just where unemployment was a couple of 18 months ago before COVID, and I think we started the project 18 months ago, the young person of today is not necessarily a young person who doesn't have a degree qualification. It's probably a young person that maybe even has work experience, but is unemployed because they were retrenched during the COVID pandemic. So I think that's something to think about. And I think we need to also just be like, not try and rapidly build and be open to changing what we've built. I like the fact that we've gone with a more agile methodology. So let's not get married to what we've built today, because it might work today, but it might not work tomorrow. So if it's worked for the first 6 months, great, but it might not work 12 months later. And it's not because it was a bad product. It's just because the climate has changed. I mean, every time I speak to clients, I always ask them, have you done a user journey map? And they always say, yes, I have. And then I ask, when did you do it? They're like, oh no, we did it in 2019, 2020. I'm like, no, it's no longer valid anymore. The consumer of 2020 and the consumer of 2022 are two completely different people. I mean, we've all changed in so many ways over the past 18 months. And I think going forward, there's going to be other pandemics, going to be other things that cause us to change and reflect, stop and pause. And I think we need to be open to that change. So as much as you've done the development piece, please don't say you've done the work and let's rest, because platforms die because we don't change with the season. So to keep your platform relevant 10 years from now, please do be open to change. Thanks.
Right. Not even to talk about wars and so many things that's happening in our world at the moment, Sandy. So point well taken. Jeremy, same question. Any advice to the team?
Yes, I think there are kind of two key challenges. One is this idea of local, and how do you make sure that opportunities are local? Because there's no point in sharing, fantastic opportunities in Joburg when you are in Venda. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to make it so easy and something that's valuable and of interest to people who can give opportunities. So if you are an employer, even if you employ part-time people for a week, that's something that's incredibly valuable for someone to get that first step on their CV. And the same thing for anyone providing training, etc. And I think the big challenge here is, how do you make it very, very easy and very attractive for the people to give opportunities, so that you can then create the pull that will get people into the system and really the kind of opportunities flowing, as I mentioned.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Perfect. And that's a flow. That's a nice transition to Yamkelwa. Any advice going forward?
I would say that fail fast and adapt quickly. It's more or less what Sandiso was also saying. Never be afraid to fail fast, and also then augment what needs to be augmented. It's safer, and it makes sure that you are always going to be on the pulse with what the people need. You'll find a lot of challenges where you need to develop rapidly and change things. So make sure that you take it out fast, and if it doesn't work, fire it as fast as you started it.
So the irony is that fail fast is the tech way of doing things. Education works very slowly, hey? And it's like the opposite. And I think this is one of the things, this interdisciplinarity between technology and education. And that's just the point, Yamkelwa, that you raise. But colleagues, as we close out, thank you to the panel. Thank you for your contributions. Maybe a last word from my side. Sibulela will take over from me now. Sibulela, thank you to you and Wayne and the team from Mercita for believing in this vision with us over the last 4 or 5 years. This has not been an easy journey. I think it looks a lot easier from the outside. But Sandiso, Yamkelwa, Jeremy, you know it's been hard, and Rio's partners knows it's been hard. So thanks to Mercita as well for trusting in this process and believing in it and being an active partner in the way we've done the work. Thanks, Roxana, back to you.